want to state your full name?
Carlton G. Smith, Sr.
How old are you?
I'm 65, be 66 in May.
Where did you go to high school?
Conestoga.
And did you play any sports in school?
I played baseball and football for about a year.
Did you go to college?
No.
No.
And are you married?
Yes.
And how did you meet your wife?
She trapped me.
Oh.
I actually met her from a friend of mine. It was a good friend of mine, and they had a bet. She bet she could get me. He bet that he couldn't, and she won.
Do you guys have any kids?
We have 2 boys.
How old are they?
See, Terrence is 32, and Brandon's 33, 4.
Where they work?
Terrence works for Alabed down in Wayne, Road Company, and Brandon's a partner in Fleming Steak.
Okay.
He's a sous chef or one of them big chefs.
Yeah.
And are you currently employed?
I'm self-employed.
Okay. And what do you do?
I'm a carpet installer.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that?
I've been self-employed for about 30 years.
You enjoy it?
Love it.
You love it?
My knees getting ready to go have operation in April 8th.
Oh, wow.
Did you have any other jobs in your lifetime?
I worked for another road company, Shahada Road Company out of Ardmore. I worked for them for about 17 years, and then I just decided that.
You wanted to be your own boss?
Well, it was kind of mutual. They tried to put me in a situation where they wanted me to do something that I didn't want to do. They wanted me to do vinyl and stuff, learn how to do vinyl. I didn't want to do vinyl. I wanted to do carpet.
Okay.
So he kind of told me, gave me an ultimatum, and I walked.
Good for you.
And how old were you when you first started working there?
At Shahada's,
Mm-hmm.
I was about 19.
What are your parents' names?
My mother's name is Vivian L. Collins / Smith, and my father is Clarence F. Smith, Jr.
And did they work? And if so, what type of jobs did they ever have?
My mother did like days work. She's a practical nurse, so she took care of kids and families. And my father was a tractor trailer driver / trash man, cut trees down, you name it. He pretty much did it.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I had 4 sisters. I have 1 left, and no brothers. I'm the cream of the crop. I'm the baby.
And where do they live?
My sister still lives in Mount Pleasant.
Okay.
Somebody interviewed her already.
Oh, okay.
I think last year, I think it was. She told me.
Where is your original family from? Were they all from Mount Pleasant?
Mount Pleasant.
Where's your favorite place to go in this area?
In this area,
Yeah.
as far as just to go get something to eat, or just to drive around, or
Yeah.
well, I stay local, so I probably Berwyn Tavern or Casey's to get something to eat.
Okay.
I still go back to Mount Pleasant, so it's.
Oh, okay. What's your favorite place in Mount Pleasant?
That's tough. All up and down the street. I mean, I actually did. My grandparents lived on Mount Pleasant Avenue, across from Barbara Bird's.
Okay.
So I pretty much stayed with my grandparents. But my mother and father lived on Fairview Avenue, which is 2 streets over where the cemetery is, down the bottom of the hill there. So that's where I was born and raised.
Okay. And when you were in Mount Pleasant, do you remember there being any like community events that ever?
Oh yeah, we had country fairs, flower shows. Who had the prettiest gardens, and there was a lot of things in the community. Yeah, there was we had a lot of things going on over there.
How long did you live in Mount Pleasant?
Well, I left and I came back again, and I left again and came back. I grew up there. I told you about 19, and then I was married with my first wife, and I lived in Ardmore for 3 years, 4 years, and then I went back to Mount Pleasant again and stayed there another 2, 3 years. Then I moved into center of Wayne, and then here I am here. I've been here for 30 some years.
You like it in this area?
I like the area. I don't really. If I was to sell this house, I wouldn't know where to go because
Oh, okay.
I've been right here all my life, But
Go back to Mount Pleasant.
well, Mount Pleasant has changed a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of the older folks are gone,
Mm-hmm.
so the family unity and all is not like it used to be. It's just not.
And what is your opinion of maybe what other people have of Mount Pleasant? Like, what do you think an outsider's perspective is of Mount Pleasant?
Well, I don't think the outsiders really have a clue, coming in. I don't think Mount Pleasant is as warm as it used to be. So somebody moving into Mount Pleasant, I guess there's certain ones that are still probably friendly and would open their doors, but a lot of people living in Mount Pleasant, nobody locked their doors. Everybody's door was wide open. It was a great place to live. So a lot of that has changed with the new people moving in and the old people moving out.
Yeah. Do you have any good memories about Mount Pleasant?
Oh man, you don't have enough time.
What's the best one?
I don't really have a best one. I tell you that there's living in Mount Pleasant. I was taught with a lot of respect for people. And as far as growing up, I could do something wrong or something bad or something small, nothing really off the chain, but Mrs. Jones, who lived down the bottom of the street, could warm my butt, for doing it. And by the time I got home again, I'd get another one. So that's what growing up in Mount Pleasant did. Was everybody was concerned with everybody's
Everyone
children.
kind of looked out for each other more so.
Yeah, and there was, as far as child abuse, you don't know what child abuse is. It's everybody kind of looked out for everybody and was taught respect. So you didn't even talk back to anyone or anything. So it's.
I seen Joan's interview. You know Joan?
Who?
Joan.
Joan
Yeah.
Redmond?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know her?
She's from Mount Pleasant. She's been there longer than I can remember.
Yeah.
You kind of went over this earlier, but how has Mount Pleasant changed over the years? You said it's kind of not as a welcoming place. Do you think it's gone in a positive or negative direction?
Well, I still think it's still a good place to live. I just don't think it could ever be as warm as it was. I mean, it's still a great place to raise your kids because there's hardly any crime or anything going on over there. So there's really, you got to have a car to get out of there. That's the only downside, But I still think it would be a good place to live.
What's your favorite thing about Mount Pleasant?
Favorite thing?
Yeah.
I would probably say summertime when we had a lot of softball games when different town, like baseball teams from Paoli or Ardmore or Media would come over and have a big softball game, and there would be a big cookout, and it was just like a big party, And it wasn't no alcohol or anything around as I can remember then. Of course, I was a lot younger, but everybody got along, and it was like a big barbecue. And it was every weekend there was a barbecue over there during the summertime. Every weekend.
That sounds fun. What's your least favorite thing?
I don't think I really have one. I really don't.
Do you believe Mount Pleasant still has a sense of community? And if so, do you think it's the same that it was years ago?
Has a sense of what?
Community?
Yeah, I think it still has a sense of community. mean, there's still some older folks that are still there that were born and raised that are still there. They're, you know, my sister's probably knocking on 70. And there's a few people that are still older than her, probably that are still there. So yeah.
Would you want to change anything about Mount Pleasant?
Leave it the same, but it's not going to stay the same. I mean, not with people just moving in. I think the houses are being knocked out, like over on Fairview Avenue. They put them 2 new homes going down the street there where the barbershop is now. Used to be a store, Hobson store, which had been there for umpteen years. Where that new house is on Upper Golf Road, directly across from the new one, there used to be the Stedmans, and they owned all that property going down the hill. Mrs. Stedman used to sell candy and stuff out of her house, you know. So,
Okay.
so I don't know how much of that was told, but there was a Stedman store and there was a Hobson store, and they were right across the street from each other.
So. Do you think there's a difference in attitudes of the people who live in Mount Pleasant versus maybe people who live in like the surrounding area or like on the main line? Is there a big contrast?
Growing up, there was a lot of attitude. Well, Mount Pleasant was just actually a street or 2 streets or 3 streets, but we used to always have problems with the guys from Ardmore, guys from Paoli. We used to have a big community center where the basketball court is now, and we used to have like dances on Friday night and everything else. It was a big thing, you know. Not every Friday night, but it was like big dances. So a lot of times there'd be a lot of fights break out. You know, no guns and knives and nothing like that. Just regular, you know, fist fights and stuff like that there. And really, Mount Pleasant really couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't go anywhere, tell anybody from Mount Pleasant because you were wanted.
Why was that? Why was there such?
I don't know. You know. I can't say it was jealousy or anything. It was just like a turf thing, you know.
Okay.
You know, the bird boys were pretty big boys, you know, and you know a lot of people didn't like that because they went anywhere and pretty much took care of themselves. So you know, if you say you're from Mount Pleasant, well, you had to get in a lot of trouble. So they didn't really want you in town. I mean, I went to Ardmore. I always traveled by myself a lot. And I was running out of Ardmore 2 or 3 times, you know. So. But yeah, it was like a turf thing. And I don't really think it really meant that much. I mean, if Paoli and Mount Pleasant was together and we were in Norristown, a fight broke out, then Paoli and Mount Pleasant was together. And,
okay, wow.
You know, so but we couldn't get along together if they came down here. So, but I think that was just part of growing up, and I don't really think it really meant that much. Even I see the guys today, you know, and. Well, we don't even remember this stuff.
Do you think the community faces like any problems right now?
You think of what?
Any problems in the community?
Not to my knowledge,
no. We kind of learned in class a little bit about how there's a lot of college students coming into Mount Pleasant to rent the houses for just like a semester, and we heard that some of the people who currently live there have problems with it. Is there anything that you can tell us about that?
Well, just knowing from my sister, I think that Mount Pleasant is a community, and it's not really set up, in my opinion, for a lot of college houses. In a small community like that, it's one thing if they're going to move into the community and join in with the community, but if they're going to come into the community and disrespect the community, then I don't think there's any fit for it. So, I mean, I think it started out maybe 1 or 2 houses, and now I think there's 4 or 5 houses, and I think they had to put a stop on it. Township, people went to the township and made them, this is enough, so. But, you know, I'm here in Berlin, so.
Yeah, you're away from it for a little bit.
Yeah, I just hear my sister complain about it, you know, but, you know, how much damage it does. And again, you know, you don't know who's coming in to the community, because I don't think anybody is really checked out as
Right.
far as, you know, with things happening to kids and stuff nowadays. And there's a family, and you move a lot of kids into a neighborhood. Not saying that any of them are, but you just don't know where everything's going on today.
When you lived there, did you face any problems with student renters?
We didn't have it,
Okay.
none. Well, yes, we did. Well, I wouldn't say it was student. Over on Fairview Avenue, the Hobsons had a couple houses that were rented out. I can't really remember if there was any college kids or anything. But there was never anything like on Mount Pleasant or Henry Avenue. If there was anything, it would have probably been Fairview Avenue. There was only one behind the barber shop / store. There was probably maybe 4 houses. But outside that, no.
Do you have any stories that anyone has told you about student renters?
No.
Are there any community activities going on in Mount Pleasant, like, still today? Like, you mentioned that there used to be a lot of dances and softball games. Is any of that still happening today, or
No.
has it?
Oh, the church itself might have a church bazaar or something, cookout, where everybody comes by, and police will come by and introduce themselves to kids in the neighborhood. Fire trucks will come over and take the kids to on fire engine rides and stuff like that there. I mean, and some of the families that are still there might have some cookouts, you know, here and there, but nothing like it used to be. There's nowhere really to go now because they tore the community center down, and so there's really nothing to even go to anymore.
Do you think, you know, like, having a community center now would help bring back some of these activities?
It's a tough question, and the only reason why I say it's a tough question with so much violence going on now with these young kids carrying guns and all the drugs and everything else. We didn't have any of that growing up, and we had a community center. You know, I can't remember an incident where anybody had a knife or a gun. It was just
It was
fist.
a fair fight.
Yeah, and there's no such thing as a fair fight nowadays. They got a lot of mouth, but they can't back it all up. So to say that, it would be tough. It would be really tough to have a community center and have somebody run it the right way. A lot of the older folks, they would have dances up there and stay there and chaperone all night long. There was never, but I don't think would have anybody would sit there all night long.
Yeah.
On a Friday night, everybody wasn't Friday themselves.
Yeah.
If you could change or add one thing to Mount Pleasant to make a difference, what would you do?
I don't think there's anything you can make a change. I mean, if you leave the houses the way they are and just leave the people the way they are, and even the ones moving in, I mean, it's not a high dollar community, and it doesn't have to be as long as there's a lot of love and understanding and respect. I think respect is a big thing, and I think that is what's missing in a lot of families and a lot of communities is respect, because there isn't any.
And, like, what's maybe the most significant way you think Mount Pleasant has changed, and how?
How it has changed?
Yeah, like, one thing that really just stands out to you.
I don't really think it has changed much. I don't really think it has changed much other than maybe a few new houses, like the one on Upper Golf Road, closer to Mount Pleasant. That's a change. Outside that, it's pretty much the way it is. I mean, there's always been a few houses that are missing, like down the Greens property on Mount Pleasant Avenue. But outside that, everything I still think is pretty much the same.
If you had a chance to move somewhere else, where would you move?
Well, my wife wants to go to Florida. She doesn't like cold, so I don't know. I still kind of like it here. You know, I'm only an hour from the shore,
Yeah.
so you know, I fish a lot. So you know, as long as I'm an hour away from water, I'm fine. You know.
So have you ever encountered or experienced like racism, and what were some examples if you had to face direct?
Growing up in Mount Pleasant, I don't think there was any racism, because we had just a lot of the different nationalities living in Mount Pleasant. You know, we've had Spanish, we've had the whites, we've had quite naturally blacks, and I don't think there's really anything growing up, had any problems. The only problem we ran into is we ran into a few instances in the high school. Outside that, and it was small. It wasn't really that much. I mean, you run into it, and you still run into it today. You know, it's just why that is. I don't know. We all have to eat. We all have to work. We all, you know, there's things we all have to do, and everybody has to do it regardless of what race you are. So can't understand why it is, but.
Has your experience with racism changed over the years?
I would say, me personally, it's hard for me to be a racist. My mother's father is Irish, so, you know, how can I be a racist? It's kind of hard, you know, but it's kind of, you see it, and you just kind of try just to walk away from it, stay away from it. I mean, sometimes you're called names, and you know, somebody might holler something out in the bar or whatever it might be, but it doesn't. I was always taught, as long as they don't put your hands on it, you're all right. You know, words can't hurt nobody.
You just kind of like brush it off.
Well, you know, they talk about better people than the Lord. They talk about the Lord every day, you know. So you know, there's nobody higher and better than Him. So. Yep. That's the way I walk. You know, if you say call me a name, fine, all well and good, but you put your hands on me, it's a different ballgame, you know. So.
Have you ever gotten into like a physical altercation or seen a physical altercation regarding like racism?
Once I was at a party. It was a pretty much all white party, and I was the only one there, and somebody said something out of line, and you know, of course, I knew I was outnumbered, but you know, I got out of it. We settled it up after I, you know, caught him by himself, you know.
Do you believe racism still exists?
Yes.
And do you think it's the same context when we talk about racism today? Is it in the same context as what years ago people were experiencing, or do you think it's more of a different type? Because there's like new social media out. So there's a lot of social.
I think racism has changed quite a bit with a lot of interracial marriages. I think that's a good thing, because that'll cut racism out. I mean, if you go to deep part of the South where there's always going to have that problem, but around here, it's still a great place to live, and you still run into isolated places, people that come into the neighborhood, you know, where they have that problem. When they come into here, they think they still have that problem, and they find out that they really don't. I mean, there's parts of Wayne that you can go into where you can kind of feel, you know, tension. You walk into a store, everybody's eyes are on you, you know. But you know, that's the way it is. You know?
Do you have any advice for our generation, and what would it be?
The only advice I would have is you know, there's the old saying, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I still kind of believe in that, and I think that if you learn how to respect one another, life will be a whole lot simpler. You know, if you want respect, you got to give it. And I was taught that. My old grandmother was an English teacher, so my grammar had to be right on key, or I got busted in the head. You know, so, but you know, I think that was the biggest thing as far as respect. It goes a long ways, I think.
And what can our generation do to help fight racism?
What was that?
What can our generation do to help, like, fight racism?
I don't think you really can fight it. I don't think you can ever get away from it. I just think that as long as one another still can respect one another and sit down at the table and have a conversation without somebody getting upset. I mean, if you ask me a question, be ready for the answer. If you can't accept it, then don't answer. And you know, so that's what I always believe in. You know, if you ask me a question, I'm gonna tell you. You know, my wife asks me a question, be ready for me to tell you the answer. You know, don't ask it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any good stories about the time when you lived in Mount Pleasant?
Wow. Any good stories?
Yeah.
I'd really have to think about a few of them. Well, myself, I think a lot of for me, I spent a lot of time with my father. Well, not a lot, but my father was a tractor and trailer driver. He would leave Sunday and wouldn't get back home until Friday. We worked in the yard all day Saturday. Sunday he was in church. Sunday night he was gone. So I didn't really get a chance to spend a lot of time on doing things with him. But we used to hunt together, and on Saturdays we'd get up early in the morning and maybe go out. That's before Mount Pleasant, even these houses on Radnor Road, these condos and all, used to be all woods. We used to be able to walk. We used to walk from Mount Pleasant to King of Prussia before the King of Prussia Mall was really established, and then turn around and walk all the way back. We used to walk from down the bottom of here, Howellville, and walk all the way up to Paoli and back and just hunt. You know, so I spent a lot of good times with my father doing that. Didn't spend a lot of fishing time with him, but spent a lot of quality time. So that's probably one of my, and most of, when my father did get moved off, him and my mother got divorced and moved off, I always hunted a lot with my father's friends, so I was always able to stay into hunting and trap shooting and things like that there. So that's probably one of my favorite times over there. Either that or tearing up lawnmowers and riding them around, riding mowers and riding them from Fairview Avenue all the way around to Mount Pleasant Avenue. With things you could do that today, but today there's just too many cars. So that was my little go-kart.
That's all the questions.
That's all the questions. They were easy.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to share with us, or any questions you have for us about anything?
No, I guess you know, I would just say that why are you, do you have to study this, or is this something that you're doing this on your own, or?
We're in, like, it's Engagements of Common Good at Cabrini. It's like the democracy and diversity, and our focus, I guess you could say, is Mount Pleasant.
Yeah.
So we went there. One day we went and took a tour. And we learned about it. We've been writing reflections about our experience there. And then this is the interview section, where I guess it makes a difference hearing firsthand experiences of things versus just reading them, you know.
It was Mount Pleasant. It was a great place to be brought up. A great place. And I probably have a lot of fond memories of Mount Pleasant and a lot of people. I can name you every house going down Mount Pleasant Avenue, who lived in every house, and come back up the street. And so I still have a lot of those fond memories with a lot of great people that are from there. Some of them were self-employed, some of them worked for IBM or some of the bigger companies. Some of them just did days work. So everybody was different. You know, I remember the Pasquales that lived down across from Barbara's house. If you're on her front porch, it's a house to the right, the big house. It has a great big garage in the back. And the Pasquales lived there, and they had a daughter named Maria and a son, Paul, I think his name was. And they had goats. And there was a pasture. There's a little split level house that sits maybe 3 doors down from Barbara's, set back. Well, that was all pasture, so he used to keep his goats and stuff in there. So it was, you know, it was different. My grandparents lived across the street from Barbara, one of the first houses on Mount Pleasant Avenue, and they had chickens and stuff. So you know, we did a little bit of farming. My grandfather had a half acre of garden. We started weeding the weeds for vegetables on Monday. We'd be finished on Friday, and we'd start all over again on Monday. So we had our own vegetables and things. So you know, it was a lot of knowledge growing up that I'm still able to carry and be able to talk about it. which is a good thing. You know, it's I have a lot of fond memories of Mount Pleasant. It's a great place to live.
Do you still go to the church over there?
Once in a while.
Once
I
in a
don't go
while.
like I used to, but
Yeah.
you know, still attend. If they need something, I still donate money or my services or whatever else. But yeah.
Well, thank you for letting us.
Oh,
in
no
your
problem.
house
Thank
and
I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Hope to help you out.
Yeah.
You did, definitely.
Yeah, bring a lot of awareness to the subject and.
Yeah, it's like I said, there should be a lot more communities around like that. But
Yeah.
a lot of the old people are gone. They're nowadays. I think a lot of these kids are having babies too young. I call it having babies, and there's no real grandparents around anymore. And Barbara was raised by her grandparents. My grandparents lived right across the street, and I was raised by my grandparents. And Barbara's husband, Michael, he was raised by his grandparents. Another guy named Gregory Moore was all right. He was raised by his grandparents.
Yeah.
And it was grandparents were a key. I mean, if you have grandparents, you should enjoy them while they're here, because especially if you can. I mean, if they're, you know, hours away, you can't really do them. Ours is like 2 streets away, so we were able to enjoy our grandparents. If you can't get love from your mother and father, you can get it from your grandparents.
Yeah, whenever I go to
Because
my
they can send you back home when they're done. You know, your parents, they got to put up with you. And I think that was another good thing, as far as for me anyway, is that I got the love from my grandparents where I didn't get enough love from my mother and father. They were workaholics. You know,
Oh, okay.
7 days a week, Christmas, Thanksgiving. I never wanted anything as far as clothes or food on the table. Never wanted anything, but didn't get enough love. But my grandparents gave me all I could take. So, but like I said, if you have grandparents, then that'd be a great thing to enjoy. If I could pass that on, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, my grandma can definitely talk for hours.
Hours?
Yeah, hours on end. I'm like, okay, grandma.
Yeah. Now I just wanted to be grandparents to my grandkids. I got one that's my grandson's 12, and when I go fishing, I take him. He lives in Sicklerville, New Jersey, so I'll run over to Jersey and pick him up, and we'll go fishing and take him back. And I got 3 granddaughters now up in Levittown with my one son, so I'm thinking about taking a ride up there. 'Cause my wife's on a cruise, so she won't be back until tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
By herself?
Yeah, well, her and her cousin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we you know, we've been married 34, 35 years, and it's our turn to enjoy life, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, she gets the opportunity to go on a vacation.
Good
If
for
I
her.
get a chance to go, I'm going too. So, yeah, and we don't have that problem. But it's a good understanding that we have. So, do we have great respect for each other? Respect again is something
Yeah.
that it's it's a small letter word, but it means it goes a big long ways.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Appreciate it. So just hit this one.
You can hit that button again.
This one?
The one on the side.
That one.
So you play the
Remember that
sports?
one? She plays softball.
I play softball.
Softball?
Yeah.